Must stand over. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Actually, it's not morning. It's morning in London. I think it's afternoon here in Córdoba now. First of all, thank you very much to the organizers for inviting me to speak. It's always a pleasure to speak at the Wief meetings. There's always a diverse group of people and a great opportunity to network. Before I start, I would just like to ask you all, could I have a show of hands of people who are from Spain? Oh, excellent. That's fantastic. Good. Well, because the reason why I asked that, and I think it's important, is because a large part of this short presentation is actually aimed towards you, because I think you stand at a very important point. And it's important because I think you have a real opportunity to make a difference in the halal segment globally. But you need to do a few things properly. And you need to think really carefully about how you make sure you turn this opportunity into something that's real, that's meaningful, that creates employment, but also can show the best of what you're good at. So I'll start. This start's always difficult, isn't it? Here we go. I've called my short talk here the Spanish frontier, because although a lot of what's discussed about Spain in the context of halal is there's a significant history, there's a legacy, you can walk around and see beautiful Islamic heritage. Actually, from a halal perspective, even though you're familiar with halal for over 1,000 years, actually you're at the start of this new potential opportunity that could work for you. And why should it work for Spain? Well, you know better than I do, but I'll tell you anyway, just in case you don't know. Well, the Spanish market is a strong market, particularly from the perspective of exports. Other than automobiles and other proteins and citrus and olive oils, actually you've got a tremendous amount of experience in exporting agricultural products. This is important because for much of my discussion I will assume that we're going to discuss meat. Meat is one of the largest export opportunities that exists. Spain has a very strong economic and legal framework. And again, in the context of exports, indeed attracting investment and businesses, this is very important. You have geographic proximity to North Africa, the Middle East, and indeed the whole world. Spain is a fantastic hub for a lot of the world. You have a strong Islamic heritage and legacy, which is important, and we'll see why this is important later. And you have great weather. And as somebody from London, I love coming to Spain. The weather's always much nicer here than it is in the UK. And why is halal an important opportunity for you? Well, it's a big market and it's a growing market. In fact, the growth within the halal segment outpaces the growth in any other part of the food business. And if you believe numbers and forecasts, well, then this is worth $1.8 trillion, an enormous amount of wealth by 2018. And the proportion that halal will make of the overall food market is going to increase from its current 15% to 17.5%. So you can see there is demand. So it's a good time to start in an industry when there is demonstrated growing demand. So far we have two elements, and they're good. We're doing well. Oh, I'm going backwards. Okay. Well, do you have the fundamentals required to enter the world of halal? Well, I think there's 4 elements that you need to have to make it interesting. So there's the halal certification. You know, I Googled, as all of us will go onto Google to search for things, and the Institute Halal comes up. So you have that. You have a body that can provide you with certification. And that's not just for the product, that's required for the supply chain as well. Do you have access to markets and customers? Again, I pulled up Conficane. I'm sure there's lots of other examples as well. But the route into the market is important. It can't be underestimated why you need to have firm control over that. And I would say at this time, you have that to emerge with, but there's some improvement to be done. Do you have investors and capital? Well, today's meeting is part of that, to attract investment in. But of course, the government has a strong role to play there as well. And Invest Spain is something which I see, although focuses on different areas overall, from aerospace to pharmaceuticals, needs to make sure that it has an interest in halal, but also agricultural overall. And of course, fundamentally, you need to have competitive products and services. This is crucial. It's crucial because if we look at it from a meat point of view and live exports, if we just look at all the countries, or at least the top 5 countries that export meat and live produce to the OIC countries, for those who are not familiar, OIC is the Organization of Islamic Countries, which represents a significant proportion of the Muslim population globally. If we look at the top 5 countries that export to OIC, you can see the USA on top, $17.3 billion in 2012. Brazil, 14.4, Netherlands, such a small country, 14.3 billion, Germany, 11.8, and Australia, 8.5 billion. This was 2012, and remember those growth figures. So 13, 14 onwards, these proportions will increase. The OIC is consuming more and more. So there's a real reason why Spain should be part of this as well, a real strong reason. But, and this is the thing, will you be able to realize the opportunity? And can you convince everybody else that you will be a formidable player in this industry? So, you recognize him. Does anyone not recognize him? No? I should hope not. He's probably one of the most influential businessmen this century. So Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs can help Spain enter the halal market. He can. And I'll show you how. Do you recognize this product? Did anyone have one of these items? Yeah, 1 or 2 of you, early adopters. So this, as many of you will recognize, is the very first iPod. Yeah, you know that. So this was launched, and you'll all feel old, this was launched in 2001. Okay? In 2001, this type of device was very common. Everybody had them. Sony made them, a company called Rio made them. They were everywhere. They were all over the marketplace. So Apple, when they started this, were not coming in to a brand new market. This was not the iPhone. This was not the iPad. This was a very competitive market. And Steve Jobs did something which made this product one of the most successful products in that market. Of course, Apple took on from there. And the reason why Steve Jobs did this and why it's relevant to you all today is because you need to think like Steve Jobs. The single thing that Steve Jobs did when he introduced a new product into a competitive marketplace was this. His branding and marketing was completely different to anyone else's. At this point, if you were to look at an advert for any other similar product, you would see MP3 player, 100 megabytes, 200 megabytes, 500 megabytes. They would sell you it on the size of the memory in the device. Steve Jobs, who took an interest in marketing, he attended everything, did something different. He said, it's not about the number of megabytes, it's what you can do with them. 1,000 songs in your pocket. So this was a different. It's not how much megabytes you have, it's what you can do with those megabytes. Why this will improve your life. And the 1,000 songs in your pocket campaign was one of the most successful campaigns in a disruptive marketplace. So keep that in mind. Steve was introducing an existing product into an already competitive marketplace, much like Spain will be doing in lots of different areas, not just meat, but in lots of different areas. Why this is relevant more so to Spain is because actually there's an importance in Spain, the country, more than the products that you make. Are any of you familiar with the Future Brand Country Brand Index? Have you heard of this? No? Put your hand up if you've heard of this. Possibly not. Maybe 1 or 2 of you. Okay. So in the same way that in your sector, in your segment, you can say, well, this is the top performing product, these are the next performing products, countries can also be branded. There is a brand value attached to every single country. Future Brand is a UK organization that ranks every country as a brand. And it does this every year, and it shows trends. Now, this is relevant because countries who have better brands have better investment opportunities, better growth opportunities, better educational opportunities, and more people will want to buy their products. So being a country that is a brand is very important, selling any product. At the moment, in the most recent research, Japan tops the table. They came first. Germany was second. Switzerland was third out of 75 countries. But this tells you that actually it's not just the products you're selling, the olive oil, the citrus, the automotive parts, the meat, or anything, the tourism that you want to sell. You have to think of the country as a whole. And this is crucial because it's not just the single product that's competing, it's the perception of Spain as a country. And will you be able to manipulate that to maximize it? You can read this, the link is online in your own time. Essentially what it says, as a country, you will be more successful if you have lots of very profitable, well-known products, branded products, that will amplify and maximize the country's importance. So for example, Japan has everything from Nintendo to Mitsubishi to Toyota to Lexus. All of these individual brands amplify the country and attract investment and attract the desire to want to work. So if we look back now at the meat countries, the 5 countries I showed you that were exporting the most meat to OIC countries, we can see, and I would suggest here, there's a relevance here. USA, in terms of the country ranking, comes 7th. Brazil is 43rd. Netherlands 16th. Germany 3rd. And Australia 8th. So you can see all of these rank very high, and this is out of 75 countries. In fact, out of the 75 countries, only 22 constitute a country that has a brand. The remainder of them aren't strong enough to compete. And it's only the top 22 that actually compete. And so, of course, for the Spanish in here, you'll want to know, where does Spain come? Does anyone know? Okay, you're 23rd. So Spain currently comes 23rd out of 75, but the top 22 are brands in themselves. When it comes to tourism and culture, in fact, Spain comes 10th. And this was a poll from over 2,500 people, influential business people, leisure travelers as well. But it's a very precise index because it can show you the value, the dollar value of having your country as a brand. Okay. Now, Steve always said you have to understand your customers. So when you think about selling your product, whether you're selling olive oil, automobile, you need to be very clear about the customer, and the customer is changing. Because even if your customer is in Mexico, Indonesia, Nigeria, and Turkey, or Brazil, Russia, India, China, they actually all follow similar patterns. Compared to, and this is not just commoditized wholesale customers, but also retail consumers. They're all changing. They're more likely to perform research on the internet. They want to have an emotional connection with your brand. They expect to buy your product online and offline. They're hugely affected by colors. Colors can make an enormous difference to your brand. Think about Steve Jobs. The white color of the apple was always very consistent. And pricing, of course. And pricing doesn't mean the lowest price. Price means price appropriately for where you're attracting the market. But you need to consider all of these things when you approach the market with your products, whichever segment they're in. Now, as I've been invited to come here, it's because there's a reason, and the reason is because back in London, back in the UK, we ran a halal food festival, as was mentioned briefly. The idea of the food festival was to showcase the halal market to the customer, but also to demonstrate it's a growing market. And this was the first time this was ever done in the world, therefore also in the UK. This ran in 2013, there's one in 2015. As a spin-off from that, we set up a halal food product called Haludis. Now, Haludis aims at the premium segment of the market. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is because how many of you will do this for every single one of your products and brands? For every product and brand that we have a vision and a mission and a very, very tight customer segment. You're not just selling meat to Muslims. It's not as good enough as that. You want to know why your meat, how you will sell your meat if you want to sell it to Bangladesh, if you want to sell it to Indonesia, the GCC countries, Turkey, or the USA. Or indeed your local domestic market, and the European halal domestic market is also increasing in value. But you need to be very clear on who your target segment is, and you need to be very clear how you intend to attract them. Simply saying, we are here to sell you product is not good enough. Okay, so I'm summarizing here to give the others a chance to discuss. So we discussed the fundamentals at the start. You need to have halal certification. Investment in capital is crucial. You need to have competitive products and access to your market. Actually, those are just enablers. If you don't have them, you can't dance this dance. You will need to have them, and you do have them. For value creation, to turn yourself into the next billion-dollar segments, you need to make sure you have deep consumer insights, innovative products, superior branding, and continually improve. The marketplace doesn't rest. Your competition will come from China, your competition will come from Brazil. It will come from places who are attacking the same growing market. Spain, you need to be prepared. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Well, I think it's very rich and very exciting presentation, full of good ideas. So now we go with Koen. He will introduce what he's doing and the opportunities that we can see.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Koen de Prater. I'm the founder of Halal Balancing. Halal Balancing is a halal consultancy company based in Belgium, and we are focusing on halal and non-halal environments. So this may seem a little bit strange why to do that, but when you look at the development in the world, a lot of growth is happening in Muslim majority countries. So if you want to take part of that growth, it's better that you are able to sell to those countries, because despite the growth, they are still importing a lot of non-halal countries, Muslim minority countries like Europe. And especially Europe has a very good opportunity to take part of that trade, because we have a very good manufacturing infrastructure. Operationally, we are very advanced. We have good safety systems, quality systems. So we could take a large part of that trade, unless there was that entry barrier, halal, which for a lot of people is somewhat unknown. They don't really know how to tackle that. And instead of promoting trade, in many cases it's avoiding or restricting trade. So we focus on eliminating that entry barrier. So how did we get to that idea? It started around 15 years ago when I was managing a poultry plant in Belgium. So we were already active in halal in Europe, but we wanted to expand. We wanted to go to the growing markets, Middle East and Asia. And then suddenly we realized that our halal knowledge, actually, we did not know that much. We learned from the certifiers. But in Europe, this is not so easy. You have a lot of certifiers, they all have a different opinion. So we were more confused than that actually we knew what we were doing. So before entering new markets, we said, yeah, we have to straighten this out. And it didn't take a long time before we found ourselves in Malaysia, halal hub of the world. Then we would learn what to do. Indeed, halal was taken at a much higher level in Malaysia. Unfortunately, our confusion also went up to a much higher level, because what was the problem in Europe, we found was a problem around the world everywhere. So what now? Well, a little stubbornness is not a bad idea to get your ideas through. So it took a while, but we got home with some useful ideas. I will not take you through all of them. I just give you a few ideas we took home. We have a lot of time for discussion. One of the things we discovered, that all these confusing things, the discussions usually were not so much about halal, but more about how to execute it. And we compared this a little bit with the highway. Imagine you're standing on a bridge, you're looking at the traffic, you see a lot of cars, big cars, small cars, cars driving fast, driving slow, trucks, buses. If the question would be, which car is halal, this would be a very difficult question. What can you base yourself on to answer that question? If I would just ask, what are the traffic rules, it's much easier. You stop at zebra crossing, stop at red lights, and on a highway, don't drive faster than the speed limit. And that proved to be a much easier concept, an easier model for ourselves, because Muslim community is diverse. They are not all the same. So the only thing we have to find out, what is our customer base, our targeted market? What are they expecting from us? And this is much easier than trying to find your way between all these cars. So that was one thing we took home. We should worry about what is the customer expecting from us. From the business perspective, this is nothing new. You always have to worry or find out what is your consumer or your end customer willing, what is he expecting from you. So this was one part, one thing. Don't worry too much, just try to find out what is happening, what is he expecting. In the beginning it was difficult, but now with all the standards popping up in all regions of the world, it's becoming easier to understand what are the expectations. So once you know what are the expectations, then comes the second part, implement it and try to implement it in the right way. And this we discovered, particularly in the European environment, is another challenge, because when you're in Europe, as a Muslim, you are in a minority. You are surrounded by non-Muslim products or distribution channels, shopping. So how do you make sure that indeed you are getting a halal product? And we discovered that this trust, next to the highway of halal, there is also this chain of trust is a very important element for success in the halal business, because what usually happens when you don't know who to trust, you go to another Muslim. Your consumer is buying from a small Muslim shop, who is buying from, if possible, a Muslim wholesaler, who buys, if possible, from a Muslim producer. So this concept of trust and conveying trust, actually in Europe, in my opinion, is crucial. And in fact, we thought it was that crucial that we should take ownership of halal ourselves and not subcontract this ownership, as is customary in Europe, to a halal certifier. It's so important that in our opinion, you could not outsource that. Suppose if you make the comparison to food safety, no company active in the food business will outsource its knowledge on how to produce safe food. So why should we do that with, let's say, the religious equivalent of halal? We also should take ownership. So this is what we were trying to do. That is what we implemented. But another point why we were doing so, we discovered that despite the importance of halal and this chain of trust, in the end, halal is only an entry ticket to the market. It is not the winning ticket. Sometimes people get confused about that. Again, taking the example of food safety, suppose my strategy was to produce the safest food on earth. Who will be my customers? It would be NASA and it would be hospitals, because they need safe food. But who is going to the hospital to enjoy a nice lunch or a good dinner? Nobody. So you still need to have a very good business case. This is your winning ticket. You only have to make sure that it's based on a very sound entry ticket, your halal foundation. That's a few thoughts to enter the discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Koen. Thanks, Koen. Well, let's listen now to Mr. Khalid Sharif.
First of all, thank you for the organization to invite me in this small roundtable, and I would like to give you what is the procedure of halal for UAE as well as for GCC countries, which is the Gulf country in our region. Actually, before that, to start, give any how you use it? This way. Okay. From where? Okay. Thank you. Sometimes the technique is difficult to understand. Anyway, we'll see here the Muslim population 2014. See, just to give you a brief view, what's the increase, mashallah, of the Muslim population in the world. And again, I think I should be here. Okay. 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 Organization of Islamic Cooperation, one of the country map. This is for the country map. And just if you can say, what is the halal is not just for Muslim only, or this is for the consumer needs. For Muslim and non-Muslim also, you can use it. Halal is more than food. It is just lifestyle. You can finance, food, fashions, and personal care. So it's just not just the food. People thinking that halal just in the food way. Just to give you the interaction between the fiqh, which is Islamic principles, and the science of food. At least you can see the science and forgiveness, and for the haram. Haram, which means prohibited, and sometimes it is makruh. We can accept it or not. So people, you have to think in halal. So sometimes prohibited, if, for example, Pork is prohibited, definitely. But sometimes, let's say some animals, it can be makruh, can be used or cannot not be used. So we have to think that that's the halal. Scientific is, for example, for sometime the alcohol, if it's natural fermentation, it is the lab can accept it, sometimes not accept it. So we have to, in science, based on science. So this is the way how we can interaction in between the Islamic principle and the science of food. The global halal standard, you can see, there is a challenge of halal standards. See, you can see the consumer Muslim organization public, the local region regulations, non-Islamic organization business and sector, Islamic organization and also CIMIC, and also public sector. So those challenge is the global of halal. That's why we have to think how to be in halal way and good to fulfill all this organization. This is very important. See how is this one, how it is going. So it is very difficult, but at least the halal, it should give the umbrella how you can control it and to be safe and to be not in good way. So halal shim in UAE, United Arab Emirates. Now the new procedure in Dubai that or in UAE that all this halal is under the ASMA, which is Emirate Standardization Authorized, and now all the food control is under the him to be approved any halal food coming through UAE, and from that we'll give you the accreditation center later on, which is DAC, the Dubai Accreditation Center, one of the accreditation to approve the Islamic organization. This is one of this planning for future. We're going to organize so any food coming to UAE or for GCC. So we're going to accredit all the Islamic body in the world to accreditation to be to be filled our Islamic requirement or halal requirement. And then halal important, any food coming to Dubai, just give preview for any Spanish company if you want to bring any food to UAE or as well to GCC. In other things, so when we call it the halal, I just give you brief how we can do it. Halal food just non-contain any non-halal ingredients. This is the ingredients should not be halal. This is and also the food shall completely separated from any non-halal food. This is that we call it halal. The other things, the processing, preparation, using equipment or tools or whichever free from non-halal materials. The four things before processing and halal food or equipment and production line shall be clean. So it should be clean anything. So this is the thing how when we call the halal. In UAE, the requirement for halal show any food control, for example, in Dubai, now the current, I'm talking the currency now, any food coming to UAE should be approved for Islamic society. So the people go and approve the Islamic society in the country of origin, and also send to the laboratory to ensure that they comply with our standard and specification standard, and also ensure the certificate has been issued from the government, the halal certificate, and it should be linked with the country of origin. And the third thing, ensure that the halal certificate is approved by UAE authorized, which is ASMA. This is the document requirement for important food. This is very important for any food requirement need. The bill of entry, awareness bill, package list, health certificate, and halal certificate, one of the important. Just halal certificate just for meat and meat product, not for other foods. So this is very important that just the halal certificate only for meat and meat product. Any other relative with the certificate, especially case such as heat treatment or whatever, should be avoided. This is if some some item which is have any band or any other things. Label of halal. Here should be written the Arabic and with other language. We can Arabic or English because English is international, so that we accept it. But Arabic must be clear and easy to read, very important, and it's difficult to remove. And specific the source, animal fat and meat, enzyme, gelatin, or any other animal's product. This must be any label coming for any GCC country. And the logo must be there, must be discipline all meat and meat product. So this halal shows with the Islamic society, which is approved from UAE government. This is sample of certificate. I don't know if it is clear. This one just give you a sample for that. And what is the halal certificate should be contain? Serial number, issues date, the Islamic Association name and address, country of origin, abattoir name and address. This is important. And description of the consignment item, brand name, package, and number of package, and total weight. And also require information of halal certificate, port of loading. It's important. Slaughter date, production, expired, and importer, exporter, remarks, slaughtering supervision, name of and signature authorized some country. We ask them to have the signature of slaughter if necessary. And sale approved for Islamic. This is the requirement for halal certificate. And this one, certificate issues date, consumer name, food item, and this is one of the items which is halal certificate. I think it's from Australia. And again, thank you very much.
Well, Khalid. Khalid, thanks a lot.
Stay here.
Again, very practice. Anyone who wants to go there must be very clear what they have to put in the case.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. Well, Horacio.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you. I want to first begin thanking the organizers, the World Islamic Economic Foundation, and of course Agropolis. And you, Juan, said you are doing an excellent job here today. I was told to give you a general overview, a general outlook of the Spanish food and drink industry in more or less 7 minutes. I guess I can do it, so I will be very fast. And just to try to put it in a nutshell, I have 3 main ideas I want to share with you. The first one is the potential of the food and drink industry here in Spain, or the agri-food sector. Second one would be variety and culture, which is very important. I will later on explain a little bit about that. And third, the leading, or how we are leading the way out of the crisis. So the first point, potential of the agri-food sector in Spain. Spain is one of what we call the big 5 players of the agri-food sector at the European level. Maybe you know that the European Union is composed by 28 member countries, and as I said, Spain is the 4th, the 5th, between Italy and Spain. We are almost, as I said before, on the top of the producers of food and drink all over Europe. Since we joined the European Union more than 25 years ago, the combination of the support from the Common Agricultural Policy, so funding coming from the European Union, and private investment has led us to a modern, efficient, and very well-equipped agro-industrial system. I can tell you, in terms of facilities, technology, and production, here in Spain, we are on the top of the list at the European level. Just to put you an example in order to let you know how it works or what we have reached, I have to say that Spain is #1 on the list at the European level in sectors like olive oil, fruit and vegetables, both preserved and fresh, juices, canned fish. Other sectors like, for example, bovine meat, poultry, and lamb, or animal feed, thanks to an extensive model of production, have become also top of the list in the European Union. In terms of turnover, the Spanish agri-food industry reached the figure of 93 billion euros last year, showing our resilience to the crisis. And at the same time, we have been able to maintain employment, which is very important, more than 500,000 employees in the agri-food sector in Spain, and of course industrial production, which makes us the first industrial sector in the Spanish economy. But when it comes to trade, figures are really impressive. Our industry has managed in the last 7 years to shift from a flat domestic market to a high degree of internationalization, with exports accounting for more than 1/3 of the total turnover and an average annual growth of more than 5 points, which is quite an excellent figure. It is also worth to note that this exports boom has been not only visible or possible in Europe or in European markets, but also in third markets, showing us the competitiveness of the Spanish produce. Just in order to give you some countries, I have to say that markets like China, India, or the United States are high in the list, and others like Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Algeria, or Morocco are part of the top 20 Spanish export markets. The second point, as I said before, that I want to share with you is variety in culture. And why variety in culture? Because I think that the food system is much more than facts and figures or just a way to feed people. A food system like the Spanish one, at least, and here I want to make a comparison with the northern countries of Europe. A food system is much more than that. It means variety as culture, which are our two main strengths, or this is at least my point of view. When I say variety, I have to remember you that we produce almost every kind of food here in Spain: olive oil, dairy products, cereals, sunflower oil, meats, fruits, vegetables. I can tell you, more than 100 kilometers from here, we have Granada. Granada has subtropical productions. And if you go to the Canary Islands, we have also bananas. I mean, we produce almost everything in terms of food here in Spain. But at the same time, culture, as I said before, is very important. As long as our gastronomy is based very strongly on this national production that I mentioned, and a long heritage in which Islam is one of our pillars, making from our Mediterranean diet the basis of our cuisine, which is recognized all over the world. And the third point, just to finish, the potential of our agri-food industry. Spain is entering in a recovery phase, as it has been already shown this morning. And after 7 years of economic decline and a painful period of job destruction, the figures coming from the International Monetary Fund, the European Commission, and the Central European Bank show us a very different landscape. A 3% of increase in GDP, job creation of more than 500,000 people this year, so figures are very good and promising. We are now in a sort, if I can say so, of a perfect mix in which, first of all, labor reform of our government is giving finally results. Second, we have low inflation, I would say even almost no inflation. We are around 0.5%. The quantitative easing policy put forward by the European Central Bank, giving liquidity to the whole system, is going also to help us quite a lot. Energy prices, of course, are also helping, and the recovery of national consumption, as well as strong exports, brings us to a new phase. If we look more in detail, Spanish agri-food sector is in a very well position to take advantage of this new environment. The first thing I want to mention is that we are almost self-sufficient in many agricultural commodities like sugar, olive oil, some cereals, dairy, fruits and vegetables. And this, in this moment in the world, is a very strong point for us. The second thing I want also to mention you is that being members of the European Union, this allows us to have a free movement of goods, capitals and persons all over Europe, all over the 28 member countries of the European Union, without having to pay any duties or taxes. And this is also a very important point. if you are looking at Spain as a hub to the European Union. Third point, we have, as I said before, a very strong agriculture and agro-industry sector, but one of our main problems is what we call atomization of the sector. I mean, we have too many people, too many companies, both in the agricultural sector and the agro-industrial sector. Well, I have to say that the Spanish government has taken several initiatives, and one of them is a very interesting one, a new law on cooperatives. In Spain, we have many agricultural cooperatives, and the idea of this government is to put them together in order to get them growth. And this is very important. Cooperatives are merging thanks to this new legislation introduced by our government, and this will lead them to a better market position and profitability. Just for instance, to let you know, the recent creation of what has been called Of Spain. Of Spain is the merge of 4 big cooperatives in Spain in the lamp sector, which is leading them to position #1 at the European level. The other point I also wanted to mention, and this just to finish, I guess I am on time, I hope, is tourism. We are going to talk about tourism later on, but let me share with you some thinking about. Tourism is key in the Spanish service sector, with more than 67 million people visiting us last year. When I think about that in terms of production in the food industry, I always say that Spain is not the obligation, let's say so, to export in order to let know our products. 67 million people are coming every year here to Spain, and they have the possibility to test and to know our products, our production, our culture, as I said before, our gastronomy, and this is a very important point. Mainly, I come back to the idea, if we compare us with countries in North Europe like the UK, Denmark, and any others coming, as I said before, from those area, northern area of Europe. Our authorities and the food industry have learned that this is a big mine in which we have to dig and exploit this strong relationship between food, gastronomy, and culture in order to increase food consumption and sales both in Spain and abroad. Just to finish, I would say that if we follow this path in the next years, we will be having a real exciting time for our industry. Thank you very much.
Well, Rafian, thanks a lot again. Now it's time to create the dialogue, the debate. If you have any question between the people around, yeah?
Hello. Thank you very much for your interventions. It was very interesting. My name is Olivia Orozco. I'm working for Casa Árabe, Al Bayt Al Arabi. The Arab House is a public institution, a Spanish public institution dedicated to the Arab world with headquarters in Madrid and in Córdoba. It's one of the collaborators in the Roundtable. Some of you will have the chance to see our headquarters here this afternoon. I have a question for Koen de Pruiter, but I think it can be extended to the rest. Speaking about brands that we start, Mr. Kauser start speaking about branding. I was quite curious about the choice of your brand, about halal balancing. So I was wondering, how do you reach that? How do you decide that? And initially I thought, I don't know if you were referring to finding a balanced way of living as what Islam entails, or you, as what I understood later on, you refer more about kind of finding a balance within this diversity that halal world means. If you can explain a bit more about that, I will be interested. But in relation to that, and in relation to your experience in these years in the industry, and this also extends to the other speakers, how do you see within this diversity, trying to find this balance between the different standards and requirements about halal in the different countries in the world? How do you see the evolution of the industry in this year? Do you see that it's going towards a kind of global halal market, or there's kind of a competition and division of the different markets? And in that sense, how do you, for companies that are starting now the business, then how do you advise to approach it? Because you were speaking, for example, about Malaysia, which is kind of as I understood, has very high standards, or we saw the case of also Emirates that is introduced new requirements. So how do you advise for companies that are starting where to start with, or which markets are kind of maybe entrance markets to approach the industry? Thank you.
Thanks. Koen, I think the question for you.
Thank you for asking a question about the name, but you're right. There has been some thinking behind the name, and the main thing why I call it halal balancing was by my previous experience. So I was a poultry processor where we also were slaughtering animals. So this is the worst thing you can do when you're entering halal markets, slaughtering something yourself. And like many people, we did not really know what the main issue is. Always stunning. You cannot have a forum without talking about stunning and having a debate around it. And what I realized, or what I found out, that actually it's not black and white. If you choose for one solution, there are disadvantages that come with that solution. If you go for another solution, you also have disadvantages. So you always have to find some compromise in the good way, not in compromising things that it become a bad thing. You always have to find an equilibrium, a balance between requirements, because not always you're in the capacity to choose the one right thing. And this is, through all of my experience, this is actually what I learned. It's not black and white. It has about decisions. It's about making a choice. This is why this highway of halal, as I call it, with the different speeds, it reflects a bit this diversity. In my opinion, we should try not to judge about the different speeds, because this is what I see a lot happening. As long as you're driving below the speed limit, it's okay. But what sometimes you see, if you're driving 80 because you feel comfortable at driving 80, you see someone driving 100, the tendency, you get to start feeling a little bit frustrating that someone else is driving faster. So you tend to say, look, you are no longer halal because you're driving faster than my safe speed, although you're still having, you're still within the speed limits. It's like a traffic agent who would give you a speed ticket because you are driving faster than he thinks you should be driving. So that's a bit why I said, look, it's not that black and white. You have to make some choices. Sometimes it could be that by making a choice, you are limiting your market segment. Okay, but that is a choice. It's not a judgment. And this is why balancing, for me, is very important. And that's why I call it halal balancing for that perspective, especially if it's done for in the European environment, which is a non-halal environment. You even have to make more compromises and judgments. This is possible, this is not possible. If I do this, then it may be so expensive that it's no longer possible. This is one of the topics which is also in Europe. There's a mixed supply chain. What you do with that? Logistics is always another part. So balancing, pragmatic. This is maybe Belgian people. We are a little bit pragmatic as well. So we try to find a way. Okay, these are the difficult parts. What can we do to get one step further? You may have known that we have the Flemish part and the French part in Belgium. We're still one country. This is because we are capable of finding compromises, finding solutions. This is part of why I call it halal balancing. And then I have the next questions. How do we cope with different standards? Or global halal market and
how do you see the evolution of the industry at the global in the world? If it's going towards a global halal market, or if the increase in the diversity of standards are contributing to more kind of division, and then how do you advise to approach that market?
It depends a bit on what do you understand by global. And I think that is the starting point. For me, if I look at standards and something global, this is A4. This is the format of a sheet, A4. This is a true standard. I think it's an ISO standard, true global. Everyone in the world can use this sheet of paper, this standard. This one is A5, also a standard, also used globally. So global means everybody can use it. It has clear description. What are the expectations? Sometimes I have the feeling that we are confusing global with uniform, only one. So why should I be forced to write only on this paper, where sometimes this one is more convenient? So for me, yes, it's coming more global, but it does not mean more uniform. I don't think it's going, I think it's going in the opposite direction. More and more people start to realize that halal industry is going up, but you see more people describing what they are expecting, so you have more and more standards of a better quality, but they will not always describe the same thing. And coming from Belgium, we are a small country. For us, this is not a big problem. If I want to export 200 kilometers away, I'm no longer in Belgium, I'm in France or in Germany or in Holland or in UK. I already have 4 different flavors in my product. So what's, for us, from our perspective, what's the big deal? But I know from big countries, they don't think like that. They are very surprised that they have to adapt their product. For us, it's second nature. I hope this answers your question.
In relation with this question, I have a question for all of you. So we can say that halal certification is only a certification. It could be a behavior. It could be a new way to see opportunities. It's just a rule, or we can see something have changed. Because if we see in the numbers, there are more people who are not Muslim are using halal products. So
yeah, I think that's a good question. And if we look at the US market for kosher food, so the US kosher food market is enormous and certainly far outstrips the number of people who describe themselves of the Jewish faith living there. And so the research that has been done into why kosher food is eaten by so many people just points to the fact that a lot of people believe that kosher food is more ethical, perhaps is better for them, has health benefits. So in fact, if we look at the US example, kosher food is eaten by lots of people. And I think Khaled mentioned the point, halal is not just for Muslims, it's a philosophy. And I think that philosophy, if it's described properly, can make it valuable and useful to lots of people. And in fact, the US example with kosher is seen with halal in Europe as well at the moment, where a lot of people are buying it. I mean, it does move on to issues of labeling. It does move on to issues of what is the narrative, what is the halal philosophy? Do people understand it? How is it shaped differently for tourism as it is for food, as it is for other behaviors? So I think finance as well, of course. But I think potentially, and indeed the philosophy of halal is it applies to everyone. Yeah. It just needs to be described in the right way.
Any of you want to add something?
I think in addition of that, halal, we should understand is not just a slaughter. People think it's a slaughter. Halal, it's a way from farm to fork, from producer, from the abattoir, separation, car, transportation, until the consumer. And we should understand what is the concept of halal. As my colleague mentioned that, yes, what is the global? That's why the global of halal is very different. That's why I'm showing that we have so many organizations of Islamic. So the way which is you are accepted and you think that this is halal. And it's not just, as you mentioned, a piece of paper is just halal. It's just a paper. It shows that a document. It's just a document. But you should understand this document, how you get it. It's important. And we should know what is the halal concept. And people, as mentioned, there is a kosher as accepted. There's no different. And some organizations, they're doing a halal way. There are some organizations, not just a kosher, there are some non-Muslims, they are doing also halal. But this, the halal concept is okay, this is not accepted. So we have to think what's the halal organization, the concept of halal.
Is any of you in the public?
Hi, my name is Juan Jose Ritter. I'm the founder of a technological company specializing in mobile and payment system, e-commerce in general. My question is regarding this kind of concept, because it's great to understand the different concept of halal, because it's not only food, it's just all the process, all the even the distribution channel. My question is to all the panelists. Okay, it's a general question regarding the what to do about the distribution channel, because there is a lot of information to show to the final consumer. For example, serial number, where the food comes from, a lot of information. But what are the tools, the mechanism to the final consumer to know all the information? It's just a paper in the food. It's I don't know, with a sticker or something like that, or we can make more information. We can give more information to the final consumer, even, for example, using mobile application or something like that. Additionally, what are the process to sell this kind of food, this kind of products using e-commerce? There is a specific I don't know, certification or something like that to sell product using e-commerce?
Probably you mean a marketplace or something?
Yeah, if there is some marketplace or there is in the internet has any other product, I think the people finding or looking for halal must be sure that they are buying something certified, something who comply with all the normative, all the regulations. Okay, and additionally, it's quite interesting to provide to final consumer, for example, coming here to Spain, to Córdoba, and finding all the restaurant who comply with the halal and something like that could be a very useful tool for all the foreigners or even people here to know where can buy this kind of products. Is this something in progress, or it is some tool?
If any of you know more about
I think it's a broad question with lots of aspects to it. I won't discuss the certification because that will go over there. But in terms of how consumers find products, consumers are very, very agile. If there's a product they want, they will find it. And to follow in your example, if a customer or if a visitor to Spain is coming and wants to find a halal restaurant, they can either use a halal booking service, of which there's a discussion later on today, or there are a number of websites which will help them identify the halal restaurants in Spain or any other part of the world, because the consumer will find out. But it's not entirely established. It doesn't always meet the customer's needs, and certainly it may not cover things, for example, finance products or other things. It tends to be focused on food today. In future it will probably change. But I'll pass on the certification and standards question.
I think, as you mentioned, that the halal, what we are looking for, that if we have the procedure in the right way, okay, it's important. So, it started from the beginning, from the slaughter, from that. If there is a procedure, then we can accept it. This is the halal way. A matter of logo, it's important that the people especially knows that this is halal or not. But the logo is important to make sure the people understand this is the halal. I think this is the way for that. So I don't know if you have something to in addition.
Probably Horacio wants to add something more.
I'm not an expert really on halal, but it brings me to my mind two things. The first one is that we had a new regulation coming from the European Union, which is entering the force last year in December, on information to consumer. I mean, all the information that we had to give on a package of food, okay? And there is a special regulation for all the information that companies need to give on internet sales, okay? So I think this is a good opportunity for halal to show, you know, that the speciality of these kind of products. And all the companies have to comply with this new regulation. This is one point. On the second hand, it has been almost already said, but I think that institutes like This one is Instituto Halal, and maybe the opportunity here to promote with different actions the visibility of halal products, you know. But this means, of course, getting all together, putting money, promoting their products, retail activities, and so on and so on.
This is a good point. Koen, you want to?
If I understand correctly, your question was also about how to convey halal integrity, that it is indeed halal to the final consumer in all of its aspects. So that's not so easy. Traditionally, you would rely on a certifier, but I am a little bit reluctant to only do that, given, let's say that this is still a developing industry, and you are not always sure that your certifier really has the qualifications to do a correct certification. And then when I look at the European level, you have, let's say, national certifiers, so they may have a reputation, be it nationally or just regionally. They may have been organized with the good intention to help people and ascertain them. They have the heart in the right place. There are a lot of them that also have the wallet in that place, so that's already one difficulty. But if you then want to export to another country in Europe, they do not have any recognition. Nobody knows what is the value of that certifier in another country. So that's already difficult. So I believe more that this is more a task of a company to take the ownership, and this is something which often is overlooked, but when you are creating a halal brand, the term brand equity, halal brand equity, this is key, because when you are branding, you have a whole lot of company or product values that go with it. Within that same branding aspect, your halal reputation is embedded, and this is a much better way to convey your seriousness on your product offering to consumers.
Yeah.
That's a little bit the way we go. That's the idea.
But it made me think about that probably businessmen around here are thinking, are they expensive? I mean, from the margin point of view, from the pure business, could we sell expensive the products so to get more margin for producer? The market, halal market, has set higher prices. How much could be, or how much expensive could be a halal product against another one who is not?
You want my opinion?
Yeah.
Well,
you are the expert.
it's unfortunate that we're in Europe, because the true value of halal, in my perspective, is the tayyib aspect, the quality aspect, the wholesomeness. Unfortunately, in Europe, most halal products are cheap, have a low quality. So far, the only country I know is the US and United States. Some companies really market halal products through their tayyib, their wholesomeness product. There you can actually have the value of the whole concept. In Europe, most likely because of the low purchasing power, a lot of halal products are very cheap, are sold in not so nice places, and that is not really helping the industry and halal to exploit the value of halal, neither to exploit the synergies that exist between halal products and halal products for the Muslim consumers and halal products for the non-Muslim consumers, because non-Muslim consumers can easily afford the higher quality products. So why should they try to buy something halal? It's not the same in US. There, the halal products are of a higher quality.
Yeah.
So in Europe, it's difficult. This is the only thing I don't like about being in Europe. I cannot really have the fun of doing halal. It's usually more on the defensive part. Make sure I'm not slaughtered myself because I am doing halal.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit.
Khalid or even Imran can say something different from another point of view.
Yeah, I mean, so we set up the Halal Food Festival in the UK in 2013, and the idea was we had over 100 different exhibitors and consumers coming in, and we had chefs, etc. Food festivals are not novel, they're not new, but what was different about this was that it demonstrated that actually there's a market for more premium halal brands.
That's it.
And this is important because the additional cost, the additional labor involved in taking your existing product to make it halal approved may be a disincentive, and probably historically has been a disincentive for some organizations to bother becoming halal. But actually what we were able to demonstrate was that actually one compared to 40, 50 years ago, the Muslim consumer in Europe, and I talk about Europe, has evolved. They're wealthier than before, they've invested more time in education, they're now occupying better income jobs. This is still different across different parts of Europe, but certainly from a UK perspective. And as a result, their purchasing ability has increased. They're the new Muslim middle class. And again, we see the same in Indonesia, we see it in China, we see it in other parts of the world. And they have disposable income, and they're looking for quality. It's a very early stage market, but there certainly is premium to be made. But again, it comes down to the value proposition. Yeah. Can you identify the consumer? Can you deliver a product of the quality that they want? There's a reason why Steve Jobs was selling his iPods more price than Sony and Rio and all the others. It's because he hit a value proposition which made it acceptable to pay a premium. Yeah. And I think for all of you, the challenge is, can you identify it? Can you make it worth your while? Can you make it profitable? The market is there.
Yeah. Mr. Sharif, something more?
I think in our Quran mentioned halal. It's not just halal, halal and tayyiban. Halal and tayyiban means halal, tayyiban means high quality. So not just halal, it's in high quality. So in good hygiene. So this is the way for halal. It's the other things, we have to think in future. I think if we have a high quality procedure to protect the halal, especially the logo, in my opinion, that accreditations, if we have a good accreditation in high quality, where we can share all the organization, Islamic organization, to have a high quality, I think we will have good increase. Because number of halal consumer now is increased, and people like to have halal. I don't know if is it expensive or not, but the requirement is increased for the halal. So that's why people have behavior, they like to have halal food.
Yeah. Any something, yeah, before.